Alright, so I wanted to do a video talking about The Prey Season 3, obviously, because we did just conclude last week on The Prey Season 3, and I wanted to give you a little bit of context on the process of making a season like this. Now, obviously, this spin-off series has been going on for 3 seasons. We are going to have a 4th season of this series, which we know is also going to be happening soon, which I'm very excited to release to you guys, of course. But this season aired for a while. I mean, this season aired ever since Christmas, and it was even a little bit before that that we started releasing this season, and now here we are almost in the springtime, and we are now just concluding the season now. The season ran for a good while. I was very, very happy to have the season run for that long because I kind of knew that this would be my winter series, and this is exactly what that was. It was my winter series, and The Prey Season 3 kind of served as that, but this season had a lot of really interesting things going on in the work process, and I wanted to kind of delve into a few fun facts for you guys that you may not have actually known about. Now, this season was definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the most difficult season of this show to make, just because of the simple reason that we actually included a movie in the season, which is not exactly something I planned on doing, but I intentionally did it to where this season had not only, you know, the big 11 episodes that we had, but we also did a movie included in that. Now, that was not the original intent, all right, and that's what I wanted to go into. From a season to a movie, that was not the idea. I actually had a few original ideas for this season before everything kind of happened. Episode 1 and Episode 2, which Episode 1 is about Rob and you know, his introduction to, the community, and obviously Rob and you know, everything he went through. That was the first episode. Episode 2 was obviously about Elara and what she went through after getting captured and after not seeing her at the skate park after Jade died. We all kind of wondered what happened to her. Well, that was supposed to actually be into one episode, but I decided to separate Episode 1 and 2. Instead of putting it in one episode, I decided to put them into 2 different episodes, and that's why I aired Episode 1 and 2 together on that weekend. If you're curious, they used to be one big episode. I separated them because I felt like they felt very different from one another. So I was like, okay, you know what? These feel very different. We're going to separate these instead. And then these will just be 2 episodes, but I'll air them still at the same time as one. That was kind of the idea there. So after deciding to expand the premiere out into 2 different episodes, I kind of figured, I was like, okay, this is the only adjustments that this season will have, right? So I kind of went on with doing what I did usually. I did Episode 3. I did Episode 3. This was probably one of the funniest episodes to ever do a writing process for, because obviously, if you guys are not aware, I have a co-writer for this show now, and for my franchise in general, Megamat1254. Well, when we got to writing Episode 3, I can't even lie, it was the funniest thing in the world. Just imagine sitting there, writing Ragnar fucks Vel Hazer. It doesn't get more insane than that. I actually had to kind of like take a second, go back, take a second, go back. The scene took a while to write because I was like, what the hell are we doing right now? You know, it was the first season in full of the World Gone Mad franchise that I co-wrote with someone else, and it was so weird to me writing a scene like that when it wasn't just me. So it was like, yeah, I actually have to get someone else's opinion now on a crazy-ass sex scene and rape scene that we're writing into this show because we're making Ragnar an absolute sick maniac son of a bitch, right? So I wrote that, and then I remember he was like bringing up ideas and stuff, and it was mental. It was crazy. It was the craziest writing process ever. Now, Episode 4 was pretty insane too because we kind of, you know, had this idea for it, and then I remember we had this concept, right, which was Ryder will eat dog food. He will go through this horrible torture, and, you know, he'll break out and everything will kind of go all right, but we're going to make him suffer for it a little bit before. And I was like, man, this is some insane stuff. And I knew, like, going into this season, I was like, this is going to be the most depressing season of World Gone Mad universe so far. And I think we could all agree on the fact that it definitely was. I mean, nobody won this season. If anything, they just kept trying and trying and trying and then kept getting more just beaten down and defeated and stuff like that. This season did not get many W's at all. It had some, but not many. I mean, our crew does not remain, on the top of the food chain, you know what I mean? Well, last season they were, but you get what I'm saying. They didn't win at all, you know what I mean? So season 3 of The Prey I knew was going to be like that, and I remember even breaking down that season with my co-writer Matt, and I was like, I gotta be honest with you, man. There's no victories this season. Like, there really isn't. Like, besides a few little things, this season does not have victories. It's the villains that own the season. And I knew doing that would be definitely a rough idea and kind of an out of ordinary one for sure. But I was like, man, this season, the villains have to win. And that was my big objective. The villains have to win. We've never done a season of the World Gone Mad franchise where the villains win. This season, the villains win. It's that black and white. It's that simple. And I remember I intentionally said to myself, I'm like, that is not going to change. This season, the villains will be the ones that get out on top. Because, again, it really shows you the reality of what would go down, right? The Skull Hunters and the advantage that they have and everything that they do. I mean, the reason why we're even in this fight to begin with is because there was a crew that took out Urban's people. Thing is, Urban's people were cannibals trying to kill our crew, so our crew were defending themselves, and now because they defended themselves, and now the leader, which is, Ragnar has all this history with Rob, now it's kind of a domino effect because of that, And now because he knows Rob, he likes to put his group to use, but then as we see the season progress, his group kind of acts up. Vel Hazer, she doesn't really want to fall in line, forces her to do so. Ryder doesn't really fall in line, forces him to do so. Holly defends herself against these crazy maniacs that try to rape her because they're jealous of how skilled she is. You know what I mean? We show that selfish element of some of the residents that live inside of this community. And boom, she gets killed by Ragnar just for defending herself and just because he needs someone to pay the price. Meanwhile, framing Rob because he's not happy with the work that Rob is doing in this community. It genuinely is defeat after defeat, and that was the purpose of this season. Defeat after defeat. And you may ask, well, Dan, will they ever get a W on Ragnar? I mean, we'll see. You know what I mean? It's still a storyline going on right now, so I can't really say too much, but at least for this season's concerned, there is no victory when it comes to Ragnar. There is no victory when it comes to that sick-ass maniac. There really isn't. Now, I've heard a lot of you react to Ragnar. I've heard a lot of your reactions to the character, and I must admit, I wanted to address this. I wanted to make him hateable. I didn't expect you guys to react in that way. And it is insane. But again, Ragnar, I mean, I was prepared for this at the same time. I mean, this guy is quite possibly one of the biggest maniacs we faced in either show, And so far, I mean, we've seen him do some heinous things. I'm not even going to go over everything because we've seen how horrible everything is. He has done some horrible things. Now, to get to the most interesting part of making this season, when it came down to making The Artist and the Con Man, which originally was going to be part 27 and 28, and 29 was going to be the penultimate, and 30 was going to be the finale, just like your traditional Prey season. And I know a lot of people have asked me about that. You're like, well, Dan, wait a minute. Usually the Prey seasons are 10 parts. At least the first 2 seasons were that way. Why is season 3 11 parts? It's funny? The plan originally was 10 parts. That was actually the idea. But I remember I was kind of writing out this backstory with Megamat, and we both just kept writing and writing and writing, and we kept coming up with more ideas and more ideas. And then eventually we said, this needs 3 parts. It does. This needs 3 parts. And then I kind of sat there and I was like, we could go for a 3rd part. And it made things flow way more smoothly, and we were very happy with that. But then I remember I was sitting there and I was like, something about this still doesn't feel right. Something about this still feels off. And that's when I suggested the idea to Megamat, and he was down for it right away, to do a film, to do a movie on the World Gone Mad franchise. We call it The Artist and the Con Man, which is the name of the episodes it was originally going to be called by. And they are still episodes, but they are made as a full feature film that you can watch, which is, basically, in other words, it's part 27, part 28, part 29, but all formed together into a movie. And that's basically all that turned into. It's a movie in a TV show, is basically what that is. So after deciding to do a movie rather than doing, obviously, the project that we originally were going to do, which was a 2-episode, 2-part backstory, and then penultimate, and then finale, and that would be your 10 parts for season 3. we instead decided to put the story first, which is what I always like to do. Put the story first, and we said, okay, this is not only going to be 3 parts, we're going to make this a movie, and then we're going to do part, 30 now, which is the penultimate, and 31, which is the finale, which may take us out of that 10-episode thing. But I remember I said in my head, I was like, but it's the story first, and the story matters the most. And that's when I realized that we were going to do 3 parts and adapt it into a movie to make it feel more grand and a big deal and stuff like that. And we intentionally did the movie The Artist and the Con Man on the 4-year anniversary of the World Gone Mad franchise. So I thought the release date worked very perfectly. It was not intentional to release it at that time, but we both figured that that was going to be a really good idea for us, and overall marketing-wise that would be a very good, sales pitch. And overall, we could hype up this movie, which I know a lot of you guys really enjoyed, and y'all supported in a great, great way. And, well, the movie itself, I mean, I wanted to do a few things with that movie. I wanted to give context on this rivalry between Rob and his manager, obviously. And I also wanted to, in addition, make a movie that gave you a full backstory on something that you may have wanted to see. But the thing is, when I was making the movie, and this is a true fact, when I was making this movie, I was actually torn on whether or not to do something. And that thing was including Ryan, Amelia, and Xavier from the original series that we know them from in Season 4 of World Gone Mad. And I remember I was torn with that decision, and I intentionally said, I was like, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to put them in there. And the reason why I was torn on it is because I knew I was including Roger in the movie. I knew I was going to do that. It was a quick little cameo, and that was going to be that, which I hope you guys enjoyed that little cameo of Roger from the original series. But I wasn't sure about Ryan, and I wasn't sure about Amelia, and I wasn't sure about Xavier, because I was like, okay, is this too much fan service, right? Is that too much? And then the idea dawned on me of why I had to do this, which is obviously Rob got out of the music business after his life was ruined, after Carrie was assassinated, and after his life fell apart, after what happened to Tesman. So then here he is, kind of a failure at life, not really sure what to do next, and quitting the music business. You know what I mean? And then it's like, hey, well, guess what? You know what I mean? Here is a situation where he runs into these people that we know based off the main show. We know that Ryan and Amelia and Xavier worked at this church, and the apostles were part of this church, and they helped people. And I was like, helping people. Goldmine, right there. I was like, there it is. That's my reason right there for Rob to get back into the music business, because otherwise it would have been a choppy mess. And I knew, I was like, I need a motivation for why. And I was stuck on that for a while. And then I pitched the idea to Matt. He liked it. We both vibed with it. And we're like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. Now, one of the other things about this season that I thought was really interesting, and one that was really fun to kind of work on, was the Athena character. Athena is actually solely created by me and Megamat. She was not a concept for my show before he joined the writing team. This is something that we created together in this season, and obviously I can't say further down the line what the plan is there, but Athena was something that me and Matt both created kind of just together, and we both are creators of that character. You know what I mean? And I thought it was a really fun idea, and Athena plays as that tragic side to the backstory when you find out that she is Tommy's, little girl, and Tommy now, which we now reveal from the very first season of The Prey, it wasn't just some obsessed fan with a knife that went up there to try to kill him. This was also the doing of Ragnar, you know what I mean? And he put this guy up to this, and he forced him to do this, and that's exactly how it went. It's pretty insane. And I must admit, though Athena was a creation that me and Matt kind of both, came up with late in the game in this show, I must admit we very much made that work, and he very much made that work, especially his work on the show, including her character in that way, and we both kind of, found a way to make her character matter. And now I couldn't see the story without Athena. I couldn't, That reveal at the end of that movie where you reveal that that's, the little girl of Tom, and you realize that Ragnar has been feeding this kid bullshit, you know what I mean? And you realize now why Athena acts the way she does, at least somewhat, there could be more context later on, but you get a general idea of what she is, and you're kind of like, man, Ragnar, Ragnar, So yeah, it was really fun. And that movie process in general was just so much fun. It was really fun adding all the pieces of context to Rob's story that you kind of got bits and pieces of in the first season and the second. And then the third season, it just makes everything kind of come together and make sense. And, in general, it's my favorite thing that I've written for The Prey. It is. It's my favorite thing that I've written for y'all so far on that show. I won't say if there's anything further than that I prefer, but I will admit that it's my favorite thing y'all have seen so far from the spinoff. And fun fact, it took me over a month to make that movie. I'm actually shocked it didn't take me longer, but it did take me over a month to fully work on that movie. Every detail included, and that was that. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty insane. Now, in terms of the last two episodes, these went pretty smoothly. The penultimate was a very easy one for me to make, and the finale was very interesting because, again, you guys are gonna have to thank Megamat for this one. He made an incredible impact on this finale. Frost dying is not my idea. That was not my idea at all. That was all him. And I remember when he said we should kill Frost off, I was like, oh man, like, is it time for that to happen? And I remember when he described the scenario and he kind of gave me this idea for it, and I was like, yeah, I see it. I do. I see it, And when he kind of explained this scene, and I was like, and I remember then I was like, okay, well, let's have Ryder of all people. Ryder has this built-up anger inside of him. He's been wanting to come after Ragnar. Let's give him that win. And then we kind of wrote it in afterwards because I knew I was going to do this. I knew that Vel Hazer was going to lose her eye way before, and I was like, okay, this moment has to happen, where she sacrifices herself when everything goes down, and then as a result, her people get killed, and that's the end of the season, right? But I intentionally knew that I was going to take her eye. Well, you can thank Matt for this detail. He added the idea that it's actually Frost's tooth that he uses to stab her in the eye. That was all him. And I remember I liked the idea so much that I went with it, and then we wrote in the scene where she loses her eye, of course, and then the final scene plays out. Which the final scene of the season is one that I think is telling of what is about to happen next. You know what I mean? We've got Ragnar taking over everything. He's got the castle absolutely annihilated. He's got Lincolnville at the palm of his hand, And our characters are out there running for their lives, trying to find a way to get out of here, if there even is a way out of here at all. You know what I mean? We don't know. So it's kind of an interesting note to leave the season on, and I kind of knew, I was like, yep, I want to leave it there. I want to leave it there. I had a few other scenarios playing out in my head, but I knew intentionally that's where I wanted to leave the season, and that's where I wanted to end things, and the rest of it will play itself out in Season 4. And then I remember I intentionally said, I was like, and this was not a plan, I intentionally stuck that post-credit in there for you guys at the end of Season 3 to give you a teaser of what's to come for Season 4. And all I can say is that it sounds like there's something going on with the West family in this show. They are going to be exposed for what they truly are. And I know I've heard a lot of theories on what you guys have said about the West family and what you think this is in this series years later in the timeline. There's been a lot of different theories out there on what the West family is in the Prey series. Do we know these people? Do we not know these people? Is this a facade? Is this real? Is this a mix? Is this what? Like, there's a lot of questions that I know you all have. You will get those answers. You will. I won't really say much about it aside from you'll get those answers at one point. That's all I can say. Does Ragnar know something? Maybe he does. I don't know. But that in general is kind of where we left things this season. So this season was an interesting process. It was the first full season of WGM-verse that I had full on with a co-writer. He did a great job. Megamat did an absolutely stellar job on the work this season. He really did. It was really well done. And his additions and his contribution to the story was fantastic. And I had a great time working with him on this season. In addition, I'll also say that I really, really enjoyed doing a movie like that, which was not a planned thing in this season. That's what makes this my favorite season I've worked on, is that we did a whole movie in the middle of a season that we didn't think was going to last more than like about a month or two in production. And then it turned into a few months worth of production because we worked on this movie and we enhanced the story and we worked on it so much that here we have this season with this massive movie in it and these big lengthy episodes that are lengthier than most episodes of The Prey. You know, The Prey is not on average 20 minutes long per episode. That was something brand new for this season because the writing had so much, you know, added to it, and there were so many things I wanted to get done this season, and I didn't want to drag out the season, so I kind of did that intentionally, and I made the episodes more lengthy and stuff like that, and I kind of, you know, crammed it in, but also let it breathe a little bit, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a very fun process. It was a very fun experience. From a season to a season in a movie is basically The Prey Season 3. Again, will we ever do something like this again in the franchise? Never say never, admittedly. You know, we could always do another movie that's part of a season. That's never an impossible thing. As long as I believe that it warrants that, of course, because we're not going to do movies just to make movies. But with this, I had an exception to the rule, and I felt like this one made sense. You know what I mean? So it kind of worked out that way. But yeah, there's a 4th season coming out. There is a 4th season. This season was a blast to make. And, you know, let me know how you felt about The Prey Season 3 in general. How did it go for you? How did you, you know, kind of react to some of this stuff? Was it too dark? Was it too bleak? You know, I'd understand it if it was. But at the same time, I think this season, in terms of at least from a writer's perspective, I think I fulfilled my goal of what I wanted to accomplish this season. And I think we did what I wanted to do with this season the most, which is give you the perspective of what it would really be like facing an empire to this degree. And to see our characters at their lowest point, and to not exactly break out of that necessarily, to actually watch the process go on the entire time. It made for a very fun story to tell, and very challenging, which I always like me a challenge. So that is The Prey Season 3. Join us for the next season, whenever that comes out. I do have a rough idea on when I want to release that season, but I'm not going to delve into that information yet. All I can say is that it will be soon, and thank you all for your support on The Prey Season 3. If you're new to the channel, guys, and you enjoy videos like this, make sure to click subscribe. And to don't miss any other videos, make sure to follow me on Dan's Reviews Official on Instagram, guys. And of course, I'll see you guys really soon. More videos for The Prey. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and peace out.